The following program has been arranged by the Division of Game and Fish.
Here is the story of the Bluegrass State's great outdoors.
This is Kentucky Afield.
Kentucky Afield.
Welcome to Kentucky Afield.
Kentucky Afield.
More than 50 years. And still fit as a fiddle.
This is Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Ron Rohde, Kentucky Afield's first host back in 1953. Now, I'm proud to present Charlie Baglin.
Opening Day. In a sense, they are holidays, at least for sportsmen and women in America. And September has a few opening days to speak of, 13 to be exact, including dove season and archery seasons for deer and wild turkey. We go inside outdoors with the experts on deer and turkey and those in pursuit. Wildlife management at work that keeps a Kentucky tradition alive. It's all next on Kentucky Afield Radio.
I have never seen anything like this.
I can't believe I waited so long.
What will you say?
My heart was pounding.
This is Kentucky. It's deer season, and it's outstanding. 43 Boone and Crockett deer last year. Modern gun season opens November 11th, with archery season open now.
Yeah.
What do you say?
I can't believe I made the shot.
Get your license and deer permit now, and take aim on the thrill at fw.ky.gov.
I didn't know when I woke up that morning that birds would stop singing or the sun would stop shining.
Alex Audie, 13-year-old survivor of a collision with a drunk boater.
By all accounts, I shouldn't be here. But before that first scream or the care of the first responders, the first thing that saved my life was my life jacket.
Life jackets.
They're like little angels. They lift you up.
Kentucky Boating and Conservation Officers remind you.
Your life jacket's got your back.
Welcome to Kentucky Afield Radio's Charlie Baglin. On the show with me today are the coordinators for the Kentucky Deer and Turkey programs. Gabe Jenkins, he'll be joining us in the second half hour. First up, we'll talk turkey. Zach Danks, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here again, Charlie.
Turkey season, September 2. What are you doing that day?
Well, hopefully I'll be in a tree stand somewhere with a bow in hand. Hopefully the day before I will have limited out on doves and we'll feel good about climbing in a tree stand. So.
What are the dates for turkey season this fall?
Archery, 136 days to pursue turkeys with a bow and arrow. September 2nd through January 15th, concurrent with deer archery season.
Gotcha.
Crossbow, we have a split season, 22 days from October 1st through October 22nd. And then we pick back up November 11th through December 31st. The bulk of our fall turkey harvest comes in our shotgun seasons. We have 2 one-week-long seasons, the first being October 28th through November 3rd. The second shotgun season, December 2nd through December 8th.
You've got a lot of opportunity out there for sportsmen and women this fall.
Absolutely, yeah. We hope people will get out and chase turkeys in the fall. It's a fun thing to do.
What do you prefer the taste of, a spring turkey or a fall turkey?
These days, no more than I get to hunt, a wild turkey is pretty welcome. But I have to, thinking about coming on the show, I was thinking kind of about the traditional aspects of fall turkey hunting. And for me personally, the hunt itself wasn't all that traditional, but I do remember Thanksgiving at my grandmother's. I had a cousin, my cousin John. He would typically bring in some wild turkey to go along with our domestic bird that my grandmother and mother and aunts would fix. So
which turkey bore the least leftovers?
I have to say most folks are used to eating the domesticated bird, so that got cleaned up. But me and my cousin and dad, we like the wild bird quite a bit. So I think it just would make probably a lot of families do kind of try to get that fall turkey to make a nice traditional meal, and it's kind of a cool thing to replicate.
You have had a survey going on over the summer to help determine turkey hatch. Explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's one of our more important ways to track the population. Lots of state wildlife agencies have a similar survey. The goal is for staff of our agency as well as members of the public to help collect observations of turkeys during the months of July and August. primary measure that we're looking for is reproduction, and we do that by tallying up all the hen turkeys that folks have seen and all the poults that they've seen. And then we come up with an index, which we use to gauge reproduction for that year, and that index is called the poult per hen ratio, and that's kind of what helps us look at long-term population status. Just in the wildlife management field in general, we're starting to shift toward engaging the public as much as we can for information. And we call that, it's not a new concept. The mail carrier route is one example that harkens back long ago. We used to call it volunteer data. Now we call it citizen science. And there's lots of ways that wildlife managers are being innovative, trying to get folks to turn in observations. There's apps for your smartphones these days. There's websites you can go on and put observations in. I don't have a great answer for you maybe when it comes to observing rabbits and those kind of things. Certainly anybody that's out that time of day would be great, but one thing we're always looking to do is get information from the public. So I would like to see additional efforts made to use the public as a resource to gather information in a meaningful way.
Are there areas of the state that may have a little weaker reporting that you would like to see a little stronger data from to get more uniform coverage for the state?
Well, I'll speak just right now from our turkey summer survey standpoint. We have pretty decent coverage across the state. We have all counties and regions represented, but in general, we need lots more observations. So this summer, we did a press release trying to get more individuals, more members of the public engaged in this survey, hopefully to observe turkeys during July and August and submit those to us. In future years, we hope to have an app developed where they can go online or on their phone and report those more easily and quickly. But for now, we're relying on them to mail in a form. In the past, we've relied on department staff and volunteers from the National Wild Turkey Federation, and we've got some long-term survey participants, which have been great. But we have seen some attrition over time. We got to tap into those joggers and people that are out there. Nowadays, farmers have smartphones, and so when they're moving their tractor from field to field, they might be willing and able to take note of a brood of turkeys they might see, whereas before it would have been too much to ask for them to remember that, get back to the house, jot it down, mail it in, all that. So we want to take advantage of technology in the future just to, in general, get our survey participation up.
Do you see a bump in the numbers about this time of year as trail cameras go up? Folks are looking for deer, for turkey, see where they're going to hunt, what's out there to be harvested. In general, I think we're starting to get more and more folks telling us, that they're seeing turkeys on their trail cams. Certainly, it's possible, and we'd love to hear from folks that are observing turkeys that way. Trail cams are so popular now, and people are trying to get an idea of how many deer on their property, how many bucks, and what they could be deer hunting this fall. So naturally, turkeys will be coming in using that, and we'd love to see their observations. I haven't gotten just a lot of reports of pictures from people from the trail cams, but that's certainly something we could try to utilize. How long into the fall do you want to continue that survey?
To be consistent with other states across the southeast and some of the midwestern states, turkey populations seem to be stabilizing or even declining in some areas, and that's naturally a cause of concern. And they've also seen declines in reproduction. And most states conduct a summer brood survey like the one we were just talking about. And so it's very critical that we continue to do that, to increase participation so we have better confidence in our data. And continuing to track that will be critical. We mainly need observations from July and August, but with September, folks, bow hunters out on the landscape, they could continue to provide us information well into September. And the thing is, turkey broods are much more visible by that time of year because the poults most broods of poults are getting up there to half, 3/4 grown, and so it's bow hunters can still distinguish them from adult turkeys and could give us some data. We haven't historically collected that kind of data, but again, as we develop our apps and that kind of stuff in the coming year or two, we would like to be able to capture at least into September information.
What kind of population of turkeys do you think we have out there waiting for the fall hunting seasons?
It really depends on the reproduction that we've had this summer, and once we get our data back from end of August. In September, we'll start compiling those. Unfortunately, the timing doesn't quite allow us to have a great, it doesn't work out so that we can have a feel for it before the archery season starts. But, we use the spring harvest as kind of an index of how many turkeys we have, and that's a rough estimate, but we figure 300-some thousand turkeys, and if we had a decent reproductive year, we would have a lot more coming into this fall, and we look for some good warm, dry weather in late May, June, early July. I thought we were headed that way, but I know we've had a lot of rain scattered throughout the state, so I'm a little concerned that some broods may have been lost. On the other hand, I've gotten several good reports of broods, so it's kind of hard for me to tell at this point.
Wildlife expert Zach Danks is the guest, and fall turkey season is the topic this half hour. More just ahead. You're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. We're back on Kentucky Afield Radio. My name's Charlie Baglin. Back with Zach Danks, the Fish and Wildlife turkey biologist, and looking forward to opening day, Saturday, September 2nd. That's Labor Day weekend. 2017 youth-only season. This is going back to the spring. And the general seasons. You had a bunch of turkeys. I've got here written down 33,061 turkeys, 6.5% increase over just last year. Mm-hmm. So you must be the man about town. When it comes to turkeys, you're the king. What's it like riding herd over such a great flock of these popular birds?
It's so funny. As I started looking at wildlife management as a career, I would read in Kentucky Afield whenever they quoted Biologist in the job that I'm in now, and thought, man, that's just what I want to do.
Give us a good quote for the magazine.
Oh gosh, I don't even want to try. Our population is healthy and doing great, and we feel like it provides a lot of opportunities for hunters. Those kind of quotes are what we end up having to say. Well, when you're in this job, naturally, when you have responsibility over a species like turkey that is so popular, everybody, you have hunters that you've got new hunters, but you've got a lot of veteran hunters now because we've had turkeys, decent populations for 30 years in a lot of places. So you've got a lot of experts out there. So naturally, when you get in the hot seat, you kind of feel a pressure to maintain the status quo or grow things or make it better. So I just was lucky that this year we had a really good harvest. But, our harvest from year to year is really dependent on reproduction, thus the need to track reproduction through the survey we talked about. Now, I will say that in 2016 summer, we had kind of a lower, we had less than ideal production. I'm a little concerned that in 2018 maybe our spring harvest won't be quite as high. 2017 harvest was really good. 2015's reproduction was good. And because we generally see 2 years after that good reproductive year, we see a bump in our spring harvest because a lot of those birds have survived. Jake survived to be 2-year-old gobblers, which are vocal, and hunters can take advantage of them in the spring season. So what we've seen, and a lot of states have seen, is pretty poor weather during the brood rearing season. That impacts your reproduction on a given year, and if you have several years in a row of poor reproduction, well, that's over time, those effects start to add up, and then you could start to see an impact on your harvest and your population overall. And certainly, the challenge of being the statewide turkey coordinator is that you've got to keep the big picture in mind while still trying to answer people's localized concerns. Certainly. And
that has to be difficult on occasion.
It's difficult. We don't have the staff. We don't have research going on in every place, and it's always tough to not be able to give folks localized answers because things could be different from place to place. But we have to do the best we can with what we have. But certainly, mast and reproduction are two critical factors when it comes to turkeys.
Here's one. I wanted you to just explain to me what you meant. It says you were quoted article back in May. Most counties, you say, show stable to increasing harvest totals, while some have declined over the past 5 years. You, Zach Danks, believe any declines are due in part to a natural correction after high population years fueled by excellent poult production. Now, my question to you, what is this natural correction?
We've talked about that on the show, too. That would be, it's sort of controversial. So as a science trained professional, I don't like to speculate without data. Amongst the turkey biologists, there has been very limited evidence for something that population biologists for all species call density dependence. And density dependence is the number, it's an effect basically of the land being able to only support a certain number of animals. And and that's called carrying capacity. So as the number of animals increases and increases, well, common sense dictates that it can't increase forever and the land can only support so many. It's going to hit carrying capacity. Mm-hmm. But what happens in a lot of cases is that populations actually reproduce at a ever-increasing rate, and they overshoot carrying capacity. Well, when that happens, that can't last for long. A lot of individuals are going to die. A lot of them will succumb to various mortality factors like predators, disease, hunters, whatever, and then the population comes back down. And so what's not been shown with turkeys is that, empirically at least, with research, is that it's not been spelled out just perfectly. It's not been formulated. In other words, we don't know exactly what the land's carrying capacity is. It varies depending on where you are. Certainly, the vast forest lands of East Kentucky vary markedly from Western Kentucky's mix of pasture and crop and woodland, in Central Kentucky. So it's hard to pinpoint, in any one area. So all this biology speak here just goes to show that this natural correction would, in theory, occur when that population in a given area exceeds what the land can support. And that's just a difficult thing to track in any one area, certainly over the whole state. So when folks locally are seeing declines, as a biologist, that's what I think about. But there could be other factors too. A lot of people are talking about disease as being a factor, and we need to do a better job looking into that. There's just a lot of speculation, but folks have to realize speculation can only take you so far, until you have well-designed, well-funded research projects that really get at it, what's going on. It's really hard to say with confidence what the problems may be.
Zach Danks, I know you have to run, but I have one piece of data here to point out to you that, I don't know, you may be disappointed. I know you're a Logan County boy. You all came in second in total harvest this past spring for turkeys. Muhlenberg County. I know you have to be arch rivals with Muhlenberg County. Yeah, if this were high school basketball, you would have to be. But 663 harvested turkeys from Logan County, 682 from Muhlenberg.
Well, it's funny because my dad's family's from Logan County. My mom's family's from across the river.
Yeah.
In Muhlenberg County. Family-wise, there's always been a little rivalry there. When my parents were courting, I heard about that, and I've always heard about it growing up. But I hardly think that's any. I didn't lose any sleep over coming in second, I have to say, because got a lot of friends and family in Muhlenberg County.
Now, I assume you were part of that 663.
Yeah, in the spring, yep. Yeah, I hope to get back there this fall and do a little fall hunting, too, because fall hunting is fun. Historically, I've not been able to go as much as I like. My dad's gone more in the fall than I have. I've always been in school or far-off places working, and it seems like I don't prioritize it. I'm also a bird hunter, too, so there is a competition with other seasons, other critters to hunt that time of year, but fall turkey hunting can be really rewarding, so...
Well, let's end with this. The bag limits, beard restrictions going into the season so that we know.
Yeah. You're allowed 4 birds total in the fall, only 2 of which can come with a shotgun. And again, we got 2 shotgun seasons. So of those 4, only 2 during the shotgun seasons. Only one of those 4 can have a beard 3 inches or longer, and you're only allowed 1 per day. So we didn't really talk about hunting methods in the fall. Fall hunting's a lot different than spring. Birds aren't quite as responsive to calling, although calling can work in a lot of cases. But the big fun thing with fall hunting, if you can locate those flocks, is to bust them up, run at them. And bust that flock up, sit down, call them back to you. That's a really fun way to hunt. So just keep in mind as you're doing that, there will be some mixed flocks, and typically hens and jennies will be together, and sometimes jakes will be with them. But a lot of times by then, jakes and gobblers have broken off and started their pecking order kind of thing. So it's fun when you're doing that to see what kind of flock you busted up. But just keep in mind the bag limits, and should have a good season this year, and I just hope folks will get out and take advantage of it. So.
Zach, good luck to you this fall in Turkey Woods.
Thanks, Charlie. Thanks for having us on Talking Turkey.
Zach, thanks a million. Dove hunters, while we have a minute, remember, you've heard the commercial for it right here on the show. HIP, Harvest Information Program. You need to take this survey. I did it. It took less than 1 minute. If you hunt doves, ducks, geese, or any other migratory bird, you are required to take this HIP survey before you hunt. You'll be given a confirmation number after you complete it, and if you are checked by law enforcement in the field, you'll need to produce this confirmation number. Now, what this does is helps the Department of Fish and Wildlife here in the state and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service gain a better idea of the numbers of migratory birds that are out there harvested in the state. It also gives our biologists, like John Morgan here in Kentucky, information he needs to make sound decisions concerning hunting seasons, bag limits, and population management. So take the HIP survey. It's done online. Go to the Fish and Wildlife website. That is fw.ky.gov. You'll see it there on the home page. It's also under the My Profile section. HIP survey, you got to do it before you hunt. Just make sure you do that so you are legal. And remember, baited fields, if it is a normal agricultural practice, you're safe. But if not, maybe you're not either. You can read all about it in the Dove Guide. Deer, archery, and crossbow seasons also open Saturday, September 2nd. Gabriel Jenkins heads the Whitetail Deer Program in the state, and he'll join us after the break and our weekly fishing report. So stay with us. You're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. Bagland back, second half hour. If you'd like to hear this show again, easily done. Go to our Facebook page, put Kentucky Afield Radio in the search box, and you'll find our weekly links. We're also an iTunes podcast, and you'll find us on YouTube. I know it's a radio show, but it's still, you can hear the audio there on YouTube. Kentucky Afield Radio in the search box will bring it up. Up next, archery and crossbow season for deer this September. First up, our fishing report.
This is Kevin Fry with your Eastern Area Fisheries Report. Catfishing reports are picking up with bank anglers catching good numbers of smaller fish and boaters using jugs, and main lake areas at Dewey Lake catching larger fish and blue catfish. Shallow water areas with good numbers of shad, also having some 15 to 16-inch white bass caught at Dewey. These fish being caught on small rattle trap crankbaits and small plastic curl-tail grubs. Some walleye still in angler creels at Carr Creek Lake. Most fish coming from depth of 8 to 12 foot and caught trolling crankbaits or night crawlers on floating rigs. Most are from main lake areas and around weed bed edges. Largemouth bass fishing reports picking up some for daytime fishing in murky water, plastic jerkbaits and crankbaits being used.
This is Jeff Crosby with the Central District Fishing Report. Largemouth bass fishing at many of our area lakes is still slow as we're in the middle of summer. Consider Taylorsville, Harrington, Gist, or Kincaid Lakes for your next trip. Action is mainly occurring early and late in the day. They're catching fish on anything from topwater lures to fishing soft plastics around shoreline cover during these early and late times of the day. Additionally, a few fish are being caught after dark when fishing plastics around cover or vegetation. Bluegill and red ear are being caught at many of our area lakes such as Beaver, Elmer, Corinth, or McNeely Lakes. And finally, don't forget about your local fishing and neighborhoods lakes. They've been recently stocked with channeled catfish. Hope to see you on the water.
This is Eric Cummins with your Southwest Kentucky Fishing Report. Fishing on Barren and Green River Lakes has been slow, with your best times being early in the day for most species. River fishing, however, has been very good. Anglers have been reporting good catches of smallmouth rock bass on Barren and Green Rivers on a variety of bait spinners, small crankbaits, and soft plastics. Also, catfish bite has been good for blues and channels. September is prime time for night fishing for trout at Fagan Branch Lake under the lights. Depth of fish there is 20 to 25 foot range. Live bait, wax worms, red worms, crickets, and minnows will all work well. Just fish right above this zone to catch yourself some crappie to add to your cooler. Be sure your life jacket's got your back.
Hip's a hip word. Hip-hop music. This cat is really hip, says 70s star Sammy Davis Jr. But for migratory bird hunters, HIP is the law. HIP stands for Harvest Information Program. To hunt birds like doves or geese, you must complete the HIP survey first to help officials better estimate game bird populations. Go to the My Profile page at the Kentucky Fish and Wildlife website. You just need 5 minutes. Hip hip hooray. fw.ky.gov.
I may never score the winning touchdown.
And I may never win the 100-meter dash, but I might.
But I can score one for the outdoors with a Kentucky Nature's Finest license plate.
The Bobcat, Butterfly, and Cardinal plates have helped protect nearly 100,000 wilderness acres across our great state.
And that's a win for us all.
Yeah.
I may never hit a hole-in-one to win the championship.
No, I may never kick that winning goal.
But the outdoors need a champion, and they have one in Nature's Finest plates.
They have one in you.
Baglin here, second half hour of Kentucky Afield Radio. I'm glad you joined us. Hunting seasons open in September, and a bunch of them. We just finished up talking about turkey. Of course, September 1 opens dove season. Deer archery season, also the crossbow season for whitetail deer, opens September 2nd. And that's going to be the focus for the balance of the program. Gabriel Jenkins, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
2016-2017 season, you marked 130,000 deer for the fifth consecutive season. 139,000 this season that ended this past January. Must be an honor to be the program chief in what we are calling the good old days of deer hunting. How's it feel?
Right. It's kind of wild, actually, to think about it, that we are in the good old days of deer hunting right now. I think it's a testament to our habitat, our hunters, and kind of the management structure that we're in. And I think it's a good time for us now to sit back and evaluate how we've been doing deer management and taking a good hard look at things.
Maybe I'm reaching back too far, but where would we be today if a young man named John Phillips didn't say we should do unlimited doe harvest way back whenever that was? Maybe it's been 30 years? How long ago? Yeah,
it's been a while. 20, probably close to it, that we've been talking unlimited doe harvest in parts of the state. It's a huge thing. It's really able to allow the hunters to handle the problem themselves, or really to pick and choose what works best for them on their property.
Second day of September. I trust you're ready to rock.
Oh yes, very much so. Looking forward to it. I know everybody's kind of getting geared up right now. They're running their cameras. The bucks are becoming more visible.
The past 2 seasons have been record-setting. What do you project for the season starting in September?
I would anticipate the same. Our deer population is very strong. Hunter numbers are slightly on the increase. A lot of interest in deer hunting, and I would anticipate the same. Last year I kind of thought we'd be down a little, and we were. Traditionally, when you have a good acorn crop, you'll see that harvest decline a little bit. Deer just aren't as visible. They don't move as much. And we saw that, and we had a lot of factors that were against us last year, but we're still able to have a fantastic hunting season, and I would anticipate the same as of right now.
There are many hunters out there who may be misled. They have never known it, because they're young or they're new into this, that it's ever been anything less than spectacular. What's your advice to them? Not get used to it, or maybe you came along at the right time?
Yeah, I think that would be you came along at the right time. If you've not thought about deer hunting, or you've deer hunted when you were younger and want to get back into it, like we said before, this is the good old days. There are plenty of deer, lots of opportunity all across the state for places people to pick up a gun or pick up a bow and go deer hunting. Give it a try.
You mentioned a few minutes ago factors that come into play: mass crop, good weather, good hunting. What are these, and what do we have to, along with quality deer management, to maintain these record-setting deer numbers? Can it persist indefinitely?
I think it depends on where you are in the state. There are places where we realize we have too many deer, and there are places where we'd like to see the population grow a little bit. And so with that in mind, it helps us try to set seasons and bag limits and work with what we want to allow people to take. And to us right now, sitting in our chair, we're in a lot of the state, we're reaching places where that population is too high. And we want our hunters to be able to take a few more deer to bring that population down. When you get populations that explode, you usually see your quality decrease. That's one thing that our hunters are able to really go out and have a good quality hunt and see some nice antler bucks. When you get deer numbers that are 60 and 70 to 80 deer that you see at a hunt, that is way too many deer, and you're not going to see the bigger bucks that maybe some of our hunters are accustomed to. So being good stewards, we are the managers of the resource. So as a manager, you need to make sure that you remove the right number of deer off your property the best that you can. So that's one thing that we're talking about a lot.
Why can't you see large numbers of deer and large numbers of good deer, quality deer, within a larger herd? Is it simply carrying capacity? Correct.
It's simply carrying capacity. We have a lot of resources on the ground at certain times of the year, but you have to have lots of food 24/7, 365. And we are a pretty heavy ag state. That helps for a while. Then you have mass, but then in the middle of winter and early spring, there's literally nothing there to eat, and the deer are starving. And so we want to make sure that we have produced enough food there and not in an artificial setting, but also we don't want to be destroying the habitat. I mean, deer will literally eat themselves out of house and home. And they will eat everything that they can potentially possibly eat that is palatable to them. So, and we don't want to be destroying the forest, destroying our landscapes by deer over browsing it. We think that we are our managers, we are stewards of the ground and stewards of the resource. So there are other things that we like to, we need to be thinking about on the small game, the mammals, the other game birds and non-game birds, and deer can actually impact all those. So when you get these huge populations, that it takes away on the habitat that affects not just deer but lots of other species.
How many deer hunters are in Kentucky?
We estimate a little over 300,000 deer hunters. It's one good thing is we've actually seen an increase in the number of deer hunters. Non-resident deer hunters seem to be pretty stable, but where we're seeing an increase is in our resident hunters. Big increase in kids and females, and also there seems to be this reactivation going on that folks maybe hunted when they were younger, got out of it. They're in their 30s, late 20s, 40s, and they've got kids, and now their whole family. Yeah, and now they're all going back out, which is really, really cool.
If you have 300 deer hunters, and I'm going to say 1 million deer, I don't know if you know down how close.
Million's a good, easy number, yes.
If every deer hunter got a deer, that would remove about a third of the population. Is that too much? Is that what you need to do? How much of that population really needs to be removed to hold the population steady statewide?
A third would be a good number. I mean, when you talk about a third of the deer removed by hunting, it depends on what that third is. If they're all female or male. But, for us, if we're removing a third, that's fantastic. Deer are going to die and a variety of other types besides hunting, and we take that into account as well. But, a third would be great.
Well, clearly that's not going to happen and hasn't. Just looking, we opened the show talking about 130,000 deer for the 5th consecutive season. So that's a third of the third.
Right.
So right now it looks like about 1 in 3 deer hunters take a deer.
That is correct. That we have 300,000. We're killing 150,000 deer a year. So a third to 33 to 50% success on our hunters. And not every hunter will shoot a deer. Some shoot more than one deer, and so that kind of all balances out.
I guess where I wanted to go with this is for deer hunters to say, I need to take a deer, or maybe I need to take 2. I need to take a nuisance deer, perhaps, and give to Hunters for the Hungry or my church or that sort of thing. If you're having 140,000 tops being taken out of the population, I would presume your populations continue to grow up a little bit.
Yes, for sure our populations have grown. When you think back a decade ago, we were still kind of looking for these populations to grow. We were growing really good. We had some blue tongue HD outbreaks in the mid-2000s that kind of knocked those populations back. We've recovered from all those now statewide, and we're growing and doing really well.
What other mortality factors are there on the deer population?
We already talked about disease. We know they're getting hit on the road. And then just deer being ornery. I mean, they find ways to die in weird situations.
Natural mortality.
Natural mortality things. Yeah. They get sick. They get injured when they're fighting or things like that. We know predators take a few young of the year. Those are your main sources of mortality.
where can people hunt? Let's say I want to. Let's say I'm a new hunter, or the guy that on whose farm I would hunt passed away, or for whatever reason I've moved on and I'm living somewhere else. Where can I go to hunt? And I'm wanting to hear you talk about public areas.
That's one thing that we really tried to do in the last couple of years is reevaluate how we do deer management on our public areas. We don't have a lot of public ground in the state. We're about 6% public property, so that's not a lot of opportunity. But where we do have public ground, we want to try to be as liberal as we can in an opportunity for people to use that area to go deer hunting. So we've tried to open up a lot of them. Most of them are all open for archery hunting. And in places where we can offer firearms opportunity, we can. The best advice I can see is we have property scattered all across the state. Pick up a hunting guide, get on our website, check it out, try to find where those areas are, look at each specific area. Some of them have special regulations, but we've tried to make them pretty consistent across the state.
The Deer Hunting Guide has a list of wildlife management areas. We call them WMAs.
And we have what's on printed material, but we also have a lot of apps now that we offer through the department that are for your smartphone, so where you can download the shape files of the WMA. It'll give you driving directions from your phone, put the boundaries on your phone so you can see if you're on the WMA or off the WMA.
Excellent.
We've really tried to stay up with technology for the tech-savvy folks that are out there.
I was reading on the Fish and Wildlife website. It says hunters took more than 5,500 deer in public lands across the state. I assume that was for this season that just ended in January, and September 2 starts the next season. 2 areas of interest: Big Rivers State Forest in Crittenden and Union counties, Rolling Fork Wildlife Management Areas in Nelson and LaRue.
We can first speak about Big Rivers. That's a fairly new property we've had in the last 5 years or so, 6,000 acres if I remember correctly. A good mix of agriculture and forest, fantastic deer habitat, very productive, and it's a great place to go deer hunting. One thing that we did enact on this is some quota hunts, so it's open for archery hunting, but there are actually a firearms quota hunt that goes on in November. And then we also have an archery quota hunt where archers are limited. The number of archers are limited through the end of October and all of November. And then Rolling Fork WMA is a new area that we just acquired in the last 2 years. It's very rural, nice mix of ag and forest as well. The forest there is pretty steep terrain, but it allows for somebody who can get off the beaten path and get up with a nice deer, and we're pretty excited about what we're able to offer there on that WMA, and hopefully more to come, really, is what I got to say on that one.
Back with our final few minutes with the deer guy from Kentucky, Gabe Jenkins. Stay with us. You're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. We're back with our final few minutes with Gabe Jenkins. Opening day of fall deer season for bow and crossbow is Saturday, September 2nd. Hotspots, Gabe, for this past deer season, where were they? I mean, like, besides Owen County.
Owen, for sure. I mean, Owen's been a county that has led the way for, the last 2 decades, and it actually went down last year. It let the top spot go to Pendleton County. Pendleton took over as number 1 last year, and Owen was number 2.
And they're rivals in basketball, too.
Oh, yes, yep. So rivals in basketball, rivals in deer hunting now, but for sure, yeah, still both of those counties are fantastic places to go and deer hunt.
How many hunters out there will take one and done?
About 75% of our hunters will only shoot 1 deer. And that's one thing that we've looked at is how many hunters shoot 1, shoot 2, 3, and 4, and how do we move that needle? How do we get our hunters to shoot more than what they're willing to harvest? And it can be difficult. You might not like venison. You're only feeding for 1 or 2, might not have the room for it. And so we want to try to push other opportunities, and you've already spoke to a few of those. Hunters for the Hungry, giving it to the local food bank and food pantry. Sometimes churches accept those. Anything you can do to offer meat. Meat is one thing that's very limiting for our hungry folks. It's just hard to get meat, and it's expensive to buy.
It's good meat. It's lean.
I think about it as like a locavore. Traditionally, the thought process is it's free range, organic.
That's it.
It's all of those things combined, but it's coming locally. And that's a big thing, especially out of our cities and the urban areas, urbanites thinking about this thing. And we've really tried to tap those individuals for deer hunting, that, you know, you're able to go out and harvest this free-range organic venison that you can bring back to your table, and it's very popular with our urban folks.
Kentucky has certainly become a destination state for deer hunting, a Boone and Crockett state. I'm going to trust that every buck that you take, and probably have ever taken, has been at least 160 plus.
No, I wish. You know, I love to deer hunt. People ask me all the time, you know, what's your preferred method? Whatever's in season. You know, to me, I'll pick up a bow, I'll pick up a muzzleloader and a rifle. I enjoy it thoroughly. I think it makes me a better biologist, better manager. You know, I'm right there with everybody and come at it from both aspects of it.
But talk about Boone and Crockett status. Where's Kentucky ranked now? Where are we?
We're in the top 5, usually in the top 3 to 4, depending on the year. But we're right there in the national discussion on the best places to go hunt deer in the country. The cool thing about Kentucky is that we're able to offer opportunity over the counter. Many of these states that are top B and C, you've got to apply, you've got to hope for years, and you might have to go with an outfitter. It's a very long, involved process. You can literally drive to this state, get on our website, go to your local sporting goods store, a couple $100, you've got your license and your tags, and you can go deer hunting. We are the few and far between when that comes with the quality that we offer.
All right, let's talk about what hunters will need to have in their pocket and what they'll need to know before they go. What's the harvest limit, shooting hours?
For a hunter, you need your hunting license and your statewide deer permit. If you're hunting on property that you don't own, if you own the property, you don't need anything, but we still encourage you to buy those and support your Fish and Wildlife Agency. Bag limits, it depends on where you hunt and what county. We are a one antler deer only state, so only one of those no matter where you hunt. And then the antlerless limit, the does, how many we limit based off of the zone. So zone 1, you can take unlimited does. Zones 2, 3, and 4, the aggregate bag limit would be 4, and how those play out and what weapon you can use to harvest that antlerless deer. Best advice is read that and review that depending on what zone in the hunting guide or on our website so you're sure of those. You know, shooting hours are 1/2 hour before sunlight to a 1/2 hour after sunset. All animals that you harvest need to be telechecked under our telecheck system by midnight of the day of recovery. And you should be pretty much at that point ready to go. If you're a firearms hunter, whether you're using the modern firearm or muzzleloader, you need to make sure you have Hunter Orange. That Hunter Orange consists of a vest and a hat, and be out there and be legal. One new thing that we promoted last year, and we're going to continue to do this, if you're successful and you harvest an antler deer, when you go through the telecheck process, we're going to ask you a few new questions. We're going to ask you the total number of points that deer has. And then we're going to also ask you a question about its spread. Is its antlers wider than 11 inches or is it less than 11 inches? So that's something new that if you've not hunted or haven't harvested an antlered buck in a couple of years that you're going to be asked about when you go to check that animal.
Hunter seem at peace with this?
Very much so. We were concerned about it last year, and we put out a lot of promotional material, and we had some questions about is Kentucky thinking about an antler restriction, or and that was not the case. We are only looking at that to collect better data.
I remember you were on the show. I hammered you pretty hard. But you did very well, and I think folks now have caught on.
Yeah, and I hope so. And really, overall, most folks were happy with that. You know, thank you. About time we got to enter some data on what these bucks looked like. So, you know, I was very pleased with it last year.
Okay, Gabe, before we close the show, let's switch over and talk to elk. Okay. You were also the Elk Program coordinator. Elk Archery, if you were drawn for that, how many tags were drawn for hunting this fall season?
710 is the number of permits that will be available for the 2017 elk season.
Elk Archery is September 16th. Crossbow season comes in the 23rd of September. Gun season is the 7th of October. Let me ask you this. Anybody who has been drawn for an elk, I'm sure has done their homework and they're ready to go. They know. But what is the difference for somebody who's still wanting to put their name in the hat and still be drawn? What's the real differences between deer and elk hunting?
They're night and day. The hunter who calls me and says, well, I'm just going big deer hunting, that's not the case. It's a completely different style of hunt, completely different set of environments and situations that it puts you in. For a novice elk hunter who's never elk hunted before, I usually ask him, have you ever been turkey hunting? I said, and if that's a yes, all right. If you blend turkey hunting and deer hunting, you get elk hunting. And that's kind of the way that I describe it to folks. You're on the ground, especially if you've got a bull permit, you're calling, they're interacting with you, and you're moving across the landscape. And it's very different, but also a pretty exciting and challenging hunt. So, that's the way that I try to, portray what you're getting into. And plus, it's going to weigh about 500 to 800 pounds. So you're not just going to slide it over your shoulder and pack it out. I mean, and take some folks along. There are lots of people that want to experience that hunt too, and that's good for them. It can be done with one person. I've done it before, but it definitely is an easier process with some help.
All right, sir. We'll try to talk to you a little closer to gun season, but the archery is upon us, and so good luck.
Thank you. You too.
We are out of time. Thanks for joining us. This is Charlie Baglin inviting you to join us in a week, and we'll go inside outdoors again, right here on Kentucky Afield Radio.